Welcome, Douglas County. My name is Kelly Robinson. I am the Commissioner of the 2nd District, and welcome to District Dialogue 2021. This should be our September edition, and I've got, as always, a very special show. This is a topic that has been brought up in a lot of my listening polls about community policing, things going on at the national level, at the state level. And so I've got a very special segment that's going to be here in this particular show dealing with that matter. In addition, I've got my annual HOA boot camp that I've just celebrated my 5th anniversary. And we're going to talk about that a little bit by sharing some of the things that are going on in your communities regarding HOAs, about maybe perhaps some of the practices that go on with the HOAs and some of the behavior going on by residents. And so it's going to be a great conversation. So stay tuned as I come back for more about District 2, District Dialogue 2021.
Solicitor General Compton, in your opinion, what are the most effective strategies police and the community can adopt to reduce crime while respecting people's rights to fair and impartial treatment?
Good morning. One of the things I think that we can do is, that the police can do, number one, is engage with young people. And the reason I say that is, when I grew up in Valdosta, Georgia, we were always taught that the police are your friend. When you grow up thinking that, you don't automatically see them as your enemy or someone there to hurt you, to harm you. So if police would engage with young people, even in school, we have police in school, but oftentimes it's kind of adversarial. Engage with the young people, and then it builds from there. I think police officers that patrol areas, but they're in their cars. So people don't see them, they just see them drive by. Why not have them get out, go out and talk with some of the people in the community, talk with the young folks, talk with the boys playing basketball, engage with them. That would also, because once there's a rapport and there's some trust there, that would also help with solving crimes, because I know I can trust Officer such and such, so if he asks me about what happened, I can let him know. It's very important. It's bonding with the people, getting to know the people that you police.
Thank you, Solicitor Compton. Absolutely, absolutely. And that is one of the goals of community policing, is for the police to get out of their vehicles, bond with the community, get to know the neighbors' kids, and things like that. When we say community policing, there's sometimes a misconception of that title. Can you explain to the audience, what do we mean by community policing?
Well, when you talk about community policing, the first thought process most folks think of is, great, they're coming into our community to police us to make sure we're doing the right thing. And it's usually a negative sense, but that's not it at all. It's a complete reverse, or a 180 from that. When Sheriff Pounds took office in 2017, I was in training at the time, and he promoted me up to, I was a lieutenant, and he moved me up to what we call the 4th floor to start his what we call the scope division, which is the Sheriff's Community Outreach Programs and Education. And that's our form of community policing. And what we do is we're not policing communities. We are going out and involving ourselves in communities. We have an ice cream truck that we've purchased with drug funds, that we go out into neighborhoods. If you have an event in your neighborhood, like a block party or your HOA parties where you're having your neighborhood parties, and get-togethers, we'll come out with you. We have a sound truck that we have purchased as well that comes out, and we really just kind of bring what I call the entertainment to the subdivision, so that the kids and the community people and the citizens can see law enforcement officers in a whole different light, that they see us as people and humans that are out here wanting to help them. Shortly after him taking office, we went to several neighborhoods in the county and done foot patrol, where we went door to door, knocked on doors, and said, for example, my name's Captain Horham with the Sheriff's Office today. What can we do? What would you like to see, or what can we do to help you with your community? It's your community. You live in that community. We can't be there every single time or every single second of the day. That would be a perfect world, but it's not, unfortunately, that way. So we're out there and asking, what can we do to help you with your community. If you're seeing something that we can do to make it better, or you may have a question, why have you got a deputy down here all the time watching these stop signs or something of that nature? Most times we get complaints on people running stop signs. With kids in the area, that's important, because if you have children out playing in your subdivisions and they're playing with balls or whatever, it runs out in the street, somebody runs a stop sign, they're not keeping their speeds down like they need to, and it could potential danger there. So those are things that we just educate the community on why we're doing what we're doing. It's not that we're wanting to revenate money or anything like that. That's a safety concern for your children that are playing in the streets, and we usually get complaints is the reason we go out to these areas. So it's a big thing on bringing in law enforcement into your community to be that partner and to kind of be like the big brother to come in and help you, whatever you need. Not so much the heavy hand that people think of when they think of community policing, like, oh, they're coming to watch us. One of the worst things that I can hear in public, and you all hear it, is when you go into a restaurant and you have a family sitting there with a young child, and the first thing the parent tells them is, if you don't behave, he's going to get you. I'll walk over and say, no, ma'am, that's not true. I'm your friend. I'm here to help you. I'm not here now. We all know breaking the law is breaking the law, but it's not my purpose to take them if they're not behaving. That's the parent's responsibility, is to make sure that they behave. But it's not our job to be that heavy hand. We're there if they break the law, but we're also there to be their friend, and they need help to be there and help them. So that's one of the most misconceptions I hear all the time. It just hurts me, because they're tainting that picture where we're not your friends, like you said. We're here to help. Sometimes that works that way, but that's where Sheriff Pounds is at. He's got a heart as big as this building for his community and wanting to help them.
County Administrator Subadan, in your opinion, how do we rebuild trust between the police and the community?
Well, thank you for the question, Melanie, and thank you all for allowing me to be here with this very distinguished panel. Trust is that intangible, right? And you don't wait for a crisis to occur to start to build trust. I call it building the trust on the blue sky days. And community policing is not an event, it's a culture. As my esteemed panelists said, it is building that trust with young people when they're still impressionable, when they're still young, when they're still open to learning. Their hearts are open, their minds are open. And so one thing that I would like to sort of highlight is the importance of crisis intervention training. In my opinion and experience, that is one area where we can help to build trust, because we make sure that our officers have the tools to be able to deal with challenges in the community. In my experience, a lot of what comes to a conflict in communities is dealing with individuals who have mental health challenges. And over my career, I've seen where that has really exploded. And I can only imagine, morning, Sheriff, what is happening in the jail right now with people with mental health challenges. When officers go out, they don't really necessarily know what they're facing. And the tools, the education, the experience to deal with those challenges helps build trust. Because when an officer goes out and they're trained, they know how to talk down and de-escalate a situation. Everybody's watching, the cell phone cameras are going, and as they are able to bring down the heat of a situation, others look at that and say, that's somebody I respect. They have a skill. They have a skill that I don't have.
So I am going to address the next question to you. To be an effective law enforcement agency, To be effective, law enforcement agencies must constantly adapt to the changing nature of crime and the way criminals behave. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue facing law enforcement today?
Touched on a moment ago is mental health issues and the children. We got to start back in the beginning with our children. Our children are the ones really committing the crime. Kids is anywhere from 12 to 19 really committing the crimes here, I guess all over, but we got to go back, stop trying to be their friend and be a parent for number one. And this mental health challenges is, we're coming across that so often now till it's unreal. We used to never face that back when I started policing 45 years ago, but you're seeing it more and more. And for some unknown reason, the community it's led us to be the hospital. Jail is not the place for a person with mental issues. It's just not the place. We must come up with a place that'll benefit these challenges that we have concerning our mental health patients. Because once they get there, get on the medication, they act like normal people. And that's all they need in the beginning is someone to take basically better care them while he's not in jail. And this community policing, that's what we want folks to do, to see us doing something different and putting handcuffs on folks. So our challenge today is our children and these health issues, mental health issues.
HOA President Curry, in your opinion, how do we build a level of engagement or more engagement between the police and the community that they serve?
I think more engagement should be like we all talked about is the community involvement, meaning that that most people, residents should look to law enforcement as one option, but we also should be a community and we should police inside our own community. And I think that's one thing that we always like, Sheriff Pound said, we look to law enforcement, but sometimes we should look within. And I think looking within, we find out, okay, who's in the community that has mental illness, okay, and how can we help that person inside the community? Also, if we know that, little Johnny or a kid is, being mischief, we should engage with that. And he said it clearly, we as parents or grandparents need to be more active in the child's growing, their health issues and things of that nature. We put all that now, most time frame I see is we put it on either the teachers or law enforcement. And the parent does not sometimes want to have responsibility for what actions that the children or the child does, and which leads up to where you have later on, the adult becomes a product of the system. And so if you can keep them out of the system, that would be more than helpful. But when you have that engagement inside of the community, that is very important, where we look to law enforcement as one avenue, but we also need to look at our public officials, and we also should look at our healthcare, because healthcare is very important, and how we get that before they get to you to the process of that, and before they get to the DA's office, where they got to go in and figure all this out and say, okay, this person had a mental illness. So I think that is one thing that we definitely need to look at with inside the community. And what we try to do inside our community is have social events. But since the pandemic, that kind of pushed away, but we still do Zoom. We still do things of that nature, trying to find out. We have a neighborhood watch program. We also are trying to get back. We have outdoor events. So that is things that you have to have. And then people will come out and have more perception of talking to some of the board members about things that's going on. So we can kind of alleviate, and we only use law enforcement when actually needed.
There's a difference between prevention and intervention. Right? Prevention are the programs, social programs that we're talking about that can sort of on the front end and do the education and parenting. But there's that intervention component, and you have a very, very important role. You and Madam DA, you as the Solicitor General of how do we make that determination? How do we have those moments where okay, it's already happened. Moment of trust. And how do we, I mean, it can be the hard letter of the law or it's the spirit. Talk to me about, I know you've just come into office. I really want to hear your opinion on how we do that, because there is perception in Douglas County. Let's be honest. There's two views. And some, I'm good, I'm neutral with police, and then or deputies, or it's the other side of the fence. And so I got to give voice to both sides. So in your mind, how do we deal with that prevention? What can we do from an intervention perspective once you got beyond something fell apart? What do you say? Because you're the prosecutor, so there's law enforcement, they just, okay, I can bring you in. But what is your perspective? I want to hear this.
Okay. Well, the solicitor's office is also a part of law enforcement as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And what we do, I'm going to give you an example. Whenever we have a jury trial, one of the questions we ask potential jurors one of the questions is, have you ever had a bad experience with police officers? 95% of the people who raise their hand that say they have are African Americans. Most of the time it has to do with traffic stops. Where they felt disrespected, treated rudely, treated more harshly than they believe their white counterparts have been treated. That is what we have to deal with. This happens, which makes it often difficult for us to get convictions because they're automatically looking at the police as we distrust what they say. That's just a reality that we have to deal with. Now, from our perspective, our office is about restorative justice. That's what we try to do. One of the things that I focus on and stress in our office is that we must treat everybody, every citizen, defendant, or whatever your position, with respect. Because we handle low-level crimes in the community, traffic offenses, misdemeanors. And oftentimes these people are just someone who did something dumb. They're not the bad folks. Our most serious crimes, of course, are DUI and domestic violence, which has soared during the pandemic, by the way. And of course, we have some vehicular homicide, which is an accident that occurred and someone died, and someone, say maybe weren't drunk or anything, just failed to maintain lane, hit somebody and killed them. So it's a low-level misdemeanor offense, even though someone died. So that's one of the things we deal with. I had a lady come in, her son got in trouble. He's a student over at West Georgia, at RA in the dorm. So he's a responsible young man, but he did something like trying to outrun the police one time and he's gonna get a ticket. Wasn't drunk, anything like that, just did something what I say is stupid. And his mama said stupid. But he came in and afterwards, the lady came to me and she said, I just want to thank you, everyone in your office that dealt with us, the assistant solicitors, they were so nice and so respectful. And she said, because he did a dumb thing and he had to pay for it. There were consequences, but that's a different side that a lot of people, when they come in, they expect us, the prosecutors, to be rude, harsh, not understanding. And we're giving this other side, yeah, there will be consequences now, but we can do it with a smile. We can do it with a smile. And that's the other side of law enforcement that most people don't see. They see the police snatching folks out the car, tasing them, beating them up and all that, which sometimes should not happen. And if I see something that in a video that I think is inappropriate, I'll call Sheriff Pounds. He handles it. So I will say we do have that support from him. The community has that support that he will not tolerate mistreatment of citizens in this county. I will say that.
As he said, he holds our feet to the fire.
Yes, he does.
Wow. Welcome back, community. Again, Kelly Robinson, District 2. That was a fascinating and very interesting conversation regarding community policing. I appreciate our sheriff, Tim Pounds. I appreciate our county administrator, Sharon Subadan. I appreciate, obviously, our solicitor, Sonia Compton, as well as HOA president from Brookmont, Ort Curry. Melody LeGrone did a great job as a moderator and stuff. And so what a fantastic conversation. And it appears out of that, there looks like there's some action for policy to be changed in the future. We'll see what happens then. With that being said, we're going to keep going. Again, this is coming from a recent HOA boot camp event that I had. And so we're going to get right into the educational component of this right now. So I want you to stay tuned and pay attention. My colleague from Fulton County, which is Commissioner Arrington, I always get that wrong. Commissioner Arrington Jr., Marvin Arrington Jr. will be live with me in this particular segment. So stay tuned, pay attention, and I'll be right back. Citizen, this is the important part of the actual boot camp. It was Commissioner Arrington who actually came up with this idea about 5 or 6 years ago. And he approached me, and he approached our colleague, Commissioner Cupid, Lisa Cupid at that time, who is now the chair of Cobb County. And he had this idea that was born out of his own experience about homeownership and what it means to be a resident. And some of the experiences that he was experiencing and the challenges, and him being a lawyer looking at like, okay, this is not right. This is imbalance. There may be some misuses, some abuses to your way, that there's a better path forward. And he came to me and he began to share this with me. And I bought into it because I got it. And he was looking for partners to get out here and get the word out to educate the citizens, because you guys know I'm an educator. It's all about the fundamentals. And a lot of times our citizens, they buy homes, they don't read the mortgage contract, they didn't read the covenant contract, and therefore they're being bound by certain things, certain rights, certain experiences. So I don't want to get into his platform, but you asked the question as to why, and it's like, because it was so needed. This is our 5th annual. It's always been successful because there's always new citizens coming into this. So I won't belabor it anymore. I just want to say I appreciate you, Commissioner Arrington, for being here, coming across the river, being here, man. So I'm going to turn this over with you and just let you go ahead and educate the people.
Basically, what happens, you live in people that live in a HOA or a condo association, which is called a COA. Or a property owners association, which is the new thing, which is called a POA. These are covenant communities. That is the one thing that binds them all together. They are community associations. So an HOA is one type, COA, POA is another. There's also a mobile park association. So various numerous types, and some of you may have even heard of co-op. Of protective covenants are the rules of the association. It's an agreement between you, the owner, the homeowner, and your association. And so it is the starting and virtually the end point for you and your relationship with your HOA. The next document that's important is called the bylaws. The bylaws are the bylaws of the association. It's the rules of how the association will govern itself. When will meetings take place? How will elections take place? So the Declaration of Protective Covenants talks about the land and the use of the land and what you can do on the land. And the bylaws talks about the operation of the organization, the association. Now, 99% of the time, Commissioner Robinson, the association is going to be a Georgia nonprofit corporation. And so you also need to familiarize yourself with the Georgia Nonprofit Corporation Code. Most HOAs, so let me back that up. So if you are in a condo or condominium association, there is a condominium, the Georgia Condominium Act, which governs you and your relationship with the association, in addition to your declaration, bylaws, and other rules and regulations of the association. Most HOAs are what they call common law HOAs. Basically, there's no Georgia law. There's no Georgia HOA law. There's no Georgia HOA Act. So HOAs, as a result, are governed by the Georgia Nonprofit Corporation Code, which governs how all Georgia nonprofit corporations must govern themselves. And the Georgia Real Property Act, which talks about real estate and the uses and how real estate is governed.
Let me ask you a question. So to that point, Commissioner, I'm listening to your opening comments. And so you've got, when I think about the HOA and I listen to our citizens, they talk about the developer, who's typically the person who creates the HOA. Is that a true statement? And then moving from the developer, it being turned over to the initial set of homeowners. And then they expand from there. Talk to the citizens, help them understand that transition from the developer. And then now it's taken over, because some of the comments I hear is sometimes that the developer didn't deliver what they were supposed to, whether it's pools, whether it's this, was that, or what happened to the money when it was transferred. And you sort of help frame that initial and then frame ongoing. Can you help them understand that? Because that's always a question I get.
Yes.
And I'm not a lawyer.
So the developer is typically, like you say, what most people talk about, but it is the declarant, the declarant, however you want to pronounce it, that is really the most important person. It may or may not. So I was in the John Whelan subdivision, right?
Yes.
All right. So everybody's thinking, okay, well, John Whelan is the developer, okay? And for all practical purposes, he was. But the declarant or the declarant of our association was a company called JW Land Investments, LLC. And so it's important for you to know the difference between the developer and the declarant and the builder. They could be one person, or they could be three different people. And so, but the only person that has any real responsibility to the association is the declarant, because the declarant could hire a developer and hire a builder. And so you might spend all your time fighting with the wrong person. You might be fighting with the builder or the developer when you really need to find out who the declarant is, because that is who you need to talk to. That is who is in charge. One of the reasons we started the HOA Alliance was because we went to next door. And so we found a lot of the answers to our problems were on next door. And in fact, they were in the subdivision that was next door. And so we had questions. You can go to the next one, please. We had questions, but the answers to our questions were right next door. And so we said, hey, these developers and declarants and management companies are all talking and communicating with each other. But we as homeowners are not talking across community lines. And the answers to a lot of our questions are right next door in the subdivision down the street. And so, we formed a nonprofit corporation to help homeowners help themselves, because not only do you need the homeowners and the board certainly needs to know the rules, but the homeowners need to know the rules. And the more everyone is educated about the rules of these associations, the better off it is for everyone, because you'll know that you're already in violation, so they won't have to come tell you that you're in violation. People's home, your home is typically the largest expense that a person has. It's their most treasured asset, right? And so people wind up either loving their HOA or hating their HOA, depending on the experience that they have while they're there. But our mission is to develop and strengthen Georgia neighborhood associations through educations, programs, and advocacy. And so you'll see up on the slide, some of our objectives. We believe that there needs to be training. The United Way offers a VIP training program for nonprofit boards. United Way VIP. It's like a 12 or 13-week program where they go in and tell you how to be a board member. They train you on how to be a board member for a nonprofit organization. And so we believe that training is necessary, and it really should be mandatory, because you have people coming into these positions that, are volunteers, and they're trying to do their best the best that they can, but they still got their daytime job. They still got their family, their children, and other responsibilities. And so it is a way to help make sure that we have the most effective leaders.
Again, the rights of both sides of the equation, the homeowner versus the homeowner association. And I'm going back to me and you as commissioners. And we got, well, you got about 250,000 citizens in your district?
Yeah.
I got 50,000, so he's 5 times bigger than I am. But I'm giving you context. You got these homeowners, and this is our biggest asset. Again, I've been in the office for 13 years and I haven't gone through the education. There's no way I could do my job, my fiduciary responsibility. Right? So we got people that you said that are volunteers, like, okay, I ain't got nothing else to do. We're gonna go up here, we're gonna be the officers of this HOA, but you got real power. I cannot take somebody's property, but if I don't like you, there's no regulation. It's like, I don't, that's too much power. Without any education, without any regulation. And you get somebody in there that may be a lawyer, they got a little insight, and y'all are misusing that power. Y'all are overextending. I mean, we have boundaries, and y'all know we got the press, we got everything that the citizens, we as elected officials we're contained. That's raw power. But you can take somebody's house, because I'm not paying I get the covenant, but I got to drive home to this point, like, oh man, there's got to be some type of education and certification I still go back to. So I know you're promoting a law. You and I were working together up in, whatever happened to that? I have to yield to his leadership, but what happened to that?
We've got to go back. They sent it to a committee. We had the,
because we pushed this last year. Last year, we put it through our local legislation.
yes.
Donzella James, Roger Bruce, all of them sort of pushed that on up, and it sort of the pandemic hit. So that's what happened. So what happened?
Yeah, they sent it to a committee, and then the pandemic hit. We've got to go back again.
We got to go back in.
We got to go back again and ask for, it's the Georgia Community Association Transparency and Uniformity Act, something to that effect. Basically, we're just asking for rules, but we've got to go back to the legislature, and we need you guys to go with us, because if we go by ourselves, they're not listening. But if we get all 2 million Georgia homeowners that live in community associations to make a voice at the legislature and ask for uniformity and transparency,
Yes.
Which should be basic, right? It shouldn't seems like you shouldn't have to really ask for that.
Right. I should
But-
have to sue you to give me records to your opening comments.
I mean, and the other side is, we have the workers' compensation law because we don't want employees suing employers.
Right.
We might need to look at a community association court, because we really don't want neighbors suing neighbors
Right.
over these rules.
Right.
Right? We want people to work and live together happily, and these things tear associations apart. They tear people apart.
Right.
They tear families apart.
We're neighbors.
And we're neighbors. And all the while, the management company, the declarants, and are getting fat off of it. And the lawyers and the law firms, right? They get paid off of the fight that we're fighting and the turmoil that you have to live in, and you have to go home and think about it every time you walk in the door.
Well, you bring up a good point, and that's the issue that I'm hearing from our citizens. Is the fact that, okay, I took $5,000-$10,000 I spent to try to fight something, and now I'm done. I ain't got no more money. You got a lien on my house. You can probably foreclose on me. And it was just because I had a misunderstanding. And so you have this heavy hand of these HOAs, and there's misuse. I won't say abuse, but there's exploitation because they're not trained. They're not certified. They're not being held to a standard. And you got somebody who knows the game enough, and they're manipulating.
One of the things that we offer as a HOA Alliance is dispute resolution. So if you find yourself as a nonprofit, if you find yourself in a dispute with your neighbor or your association, you can write to them and ask them if they would be willing to mediate the matter through the HOA Alliance, right? But we need, and what I'm proposing, Commissioner Robinson, is I believe we need a court. I believe we need a HOA court, a community association court that is more akin to the workers' compensation court that basically says, hey, we acknowledge that these people are working together and living together, and we don't want them at each other's throats. So we need to find a better way to help them resolve the issues that exist in these 10,000 plus community associations throughout the state of Georgia. Case law states that the declaration, as well as the plat and the other file documents, are part of the contract
Yes.
with the association, which means that that new builder who stepped in the shoes of the old builder, or that new declarant who stepped in the shoes of the old declarant, is now responsible for the duties of the old declarant.
Oh, so it
Which
transfers.
means
Assigned.
it transfers, those duties and responsibilities transfer, and they are assigned to the new declarant, which means you have to build what is on that plat. You have to build that pool. You have to build the clubhouse and whatever other amenities are on the stamp file plat.
So here's a question when you talk about quorum and proxies. This is key. A statistic, and you guys know I share this often about home ownership, and that's important. Though we know it's stagnated a little bit because of the pandemic, and now it's picking back up. But because of the Great Recession, right now, 43% of Douglas County homeowners are renters. This is important. The numbers don't lie. Right, so we're having this conversation, but I'm, at the same point, I know this backstory, like, okay, but 43% of the homes that are here, which is, if I move from Cobb to, from Fulton over here, much cheaper place and so forth, but okay, so 43%, so how do we deal with those who want to act and participate in the HOA? Do I have to be a homeowner, or can the renting work? How's the process? Talk to them about that, because that's key, guys, because we're conversation, but I'm like, okay, but you even got to.
Okay, yeah, so another good point, Commissioner Robinson. So certainly if you're on the board and if you're living in an HOA or community association, you want to treat everybody fairly and treat everyone the same, whether they are a resident, an owner, a resident or an owner. And or I guess a visitor, right? Yeah. And or a tenant, yes, right? So you could be a resident and an owner, or you could be a resident and a tenant. Typically, tenants do not get to vote in an election, but they do get to attend meetings. They do get to ask questions. They do get to express their opinions. And the only way that they may be allowed to vote at an election is if the owner gives them a proxy, right? If you've got a great tenant, you might give them your proxy, So it is possible that they could vote at a meeting, but only if the owner of that unit authorizes them to meet. Now, the problem that we've been having now, Commissioner Robinson, and I'm sure you all have been dealing with this in Douglas as well, is that what we call the Airbnb effect, right? And so we have people in condominium associations, and it boils down to individual property rights versus community rights, right? So you live in a community association, right, which means you are giving up some of your individual property rights for the greater good of the community. Yes. And so what happens is your home, most HOAs, I would say 100% of community associations, maybe 99% of community associations, because there are a lot of different types, are for single family residential use. Zoning, planning and zoning, you had it up here earlier. Single family residential use. Now, if you march 50 different families in and out of your house throughout the year, is that single family residential use? I think not. That is more hotel, motel. And so one of the things I know City of Atlanta has done, they now have a new HOA condominium association registry or Airbnb registry, so that you have to, if you're going to rent your home out, you have to register with the City of Atlanta, make them aware of it, pay your application fee, of course. But it gives them a chance to help regulate, monitor what is going on. But again, I would argue to you, and I have to look at theirs a little bit closer. I don't think that changes the zoning, and I think it's still, now maybe they allow an exception for the zoning law if you register through that process. But again, the covenants, the Declaration of Protective Covenants restricts your use, restricts everyone's use on the property. And so when you signed on to buy in this community association, you signed on knowing that your use was going to be restricted to single-family residential use. And so you may be violating, if you are renting out your home or your condo, you may be violating your Declaration of Protective Covenants. And if your board finds out, they may want to fine you or stop you. And then so be very mindful of that.
But, okay, so you bring up a good point. I didn't want to leave this about, so if I'm living there and to be a voter, I have to be an owner. But what I heard you say is that nobody should be censored. I'm big on that.
Yeah, and even the residents that live there could, I mean, you know, if you're renting, you can still vote. Well, there's different types of votings and different types of elections. So within the HOA, you have to be an owner to vote. You can still vote for Commissioner Robinson if you're renting.
Right. Here. No, but again, it's those little small things that matter, because sometimes it's about the treatment of the actual resident or the tenant, as you say, right? It's you sometimes you're not giving them the full, well, you don't have a real say. Right, so there's misuse. I mean, I'm hearing it out, there's little pockets and stuff like, okay, that's not right. Now, again, I can't regulate that. So I try to do is educate, is let them know that, no, you do have a voice. They do need to respond to you. Now, you may not can call for the election because you're not an owner, but I mean, sometimes people just want to be heard. Like, you're not doing your part. Like, no, you know that's not right. And so you get silenced and censored, and that's unacceptable in America with that First Amendment now. So I try to bring balance to the conversation. So again, I just wanted to make that point. I want you to keep going. Yeah. But I want to drive home that point about, they do get to speak, is your point.
Yes, they do get to speak.
Welcome back, community. Hi, Kelly Robinson again, Vice Chairman and District 2 Commissioner. What a show. I mean, that was the ending of our HOA boot camp. I mean, Marvin Arrington, he's a commissioner from Fulton County, did an excellent job. I mean, he's one of those what they call super attorneys. He has a lock on all things regarding HOA, and what an educational performance he did by helping the community understand how HOAs work, what are the fundamentals of them, etc. My heart always is out toward him, and thank him for his support and leadership in that particular matter. Again, what a show. Again, I try to take things that are relevant to you, community policing and HOA. I'm going to let this run for the entire month. So those who missed it and could not be live or see the earlier broadcast, this should be a very good something that your family could take advantage of and get involved in the conversation. Please feel free to call me directly. You can call me, obviously, at our number 770-920-7266, or even send me an email at kgrobinson@co.douglas.ga.us. Again, I won't belabor this. What a very interesting and exciting show. My name is Kelly Robinson. I want to close out this version of District Dialogue. Till next time, take care.